October 19th, 1911, Volume 10. The love from the earth renders Jesus more content, because the love of heaven is his own, while he wants to gain that of the earth. This morning my always lovable Jesus wanted to escape me, so I clasped him tightly in my arms, and since Jesus wanted to wriggle free, I said to him, "You teach me. The day before yesterday you bound me tightly in such a way that I was unable to make one movement, and I let you do it, so that at the right occasion I could repay you with the same thing. Now you be quiet. Let me do it. I want to speak to you in your ear, more so since I don't feel like shouting, as it seems that in these last days you wanted to make me shout by playing deaf, by pretending not to understand me, and I was forced to repeat and to shout in order to make myself understood. I don't know. Every once in a while you come up with something new. And Jesus, I was deafened by the offenses of the creatures, and in order to be distracted and cheered, I wanted to hear your harmonious voice, and so I pretended not to hear. Ah, you do not know what echo of maledictions comes from the earth. The voices of love, of praises, break this pestilential echo and relieve me quite a bit. In the meantime, it seemed that Mamma was coming, and I, "Oh, Mamma, Mamma, come! Oh, Jesus! Oh, Mamma!" And she, "Love Jesus very much. Keep him content. Love is his happiness." And I, "It seems that somehow he is content. I do what I can to love him, but it seems to me that you can make him content more than I can." And she, "My daughter, the love of heaven is his own, but he wants to gain the love of the earth. This is why, on this side, you can make him more content, by loving him, and much more by suffering." And I, "If you knew, oh Mamma, what he does to me. He leaves me. He reaches the point of denying sufferings to me in order to chastise. Listen to what he told me the day before yesterday, that he wants to let foreign people come into Italy. How much ruin will they not produce? He really wants to do impertinences, and to make me surrender he bound me very tightly to his will." And Jesus, "Are you accusing me?" And I, "Certainly I have to accuse you before Mamma, because she entrusts you to me, recommending that I be well attentive so as not to let you operate chastisements. And she told me even to be daring in order to disarm you. Isn't it true, Mamma?" And she, "Yes, it is true, and I want you to continue on, because grave chastisements have been prepared. And therefore love him very much, for love will sweeten him at least." And I will do what I can. I feel I love him alone, so much so that I can be without you, but without Jesus, no. And you certainly don't feel sorry about that, because you know, and you want that I must love Jesus the most among everyone. And Mamma seemed to be content. October 19th, 1922, Volume 14. Jesus repeats that which his humanity did in the divine will, in the soul who lives in it. Necessity of knowledge. The more values and effects one knows, the more he receives. Long wait of Jesus, of many centuries, to make his divine will known. Continuing to be all abandoned in the arms of my sweet Jesus, I felt all immersed in his most holy volition, finding myself as though in its center. Then on coming, he told me, "My daughter, my humanity lived as though in the center of the eternal sun of my divine will. And just as rays started from this center, which carrying my immensity with them, enveloped everything and every one, so my work, starting from this center, was as though in act for each active creature, each word as though an act for each word, each thought as though an act for each thought, and so with all the rest. And as it descended, it ascended again into its center as one single act, carrying all human acts with itself, in order to redo them and reorder them according to the will of my Father. Therefore, only because my humanity lived in the center of the eternal volition was I able to embrace everyone as one single act, in order to accomplish with decorum, worthy of me, the work of redemption. Otherwise it would have been an incomplete work and unworthy of me. And just as the split of the human will from the divine was the whole of evil for man, the stable union of the will of my humanity with the divine was to form his whole good. This happened in me as though naturally. Look at the sun. What is it? A ball of light. And this light is diffused equally to the right, to the left, to the front, to the back, above, under, everywhere. The light of many centuries ago is the same as that of today. Nothing has changed, neither light nor heat. And the light of today will be that of the end of the centuries. If the sun had reason, it could tell all the human acts. Even more, it would keep them within itself as its own property, having been life, effect, and cause of each of those acts, and this as something natural to it. Now, all this happens for the soul who lives in the center of my will. She embraces all, and no one escapes her. She acts for all and omits nothing. Together with me she does nothing but diffuse to the right and to the left, to the front and to the back, but in a simple and natural way. And as she operates in my will, she goes around through all centuries and raises her act over all human acts in a divine manner, by virtue of my will. Listen, my daughter, regenerated in my supreme volition, to what I want to make of you and in you. I want to repeat that which my humanity did in the divine will, but I want your will united with mine, so that you may repeat together with me what I did and still do. In my will there are all the acts which my humanity did, both exterior and interior. Of my exterior acts, it is more or less known what I did, and if the creature wants it, she can unite with me and share in the good I did. And I feel contentment because I see my good in the midst of creatures as though multiplied by virtue of the union they form with me. My acts are as though placed on a counter, and I collect the interest. On the other hand, little or nothing is known of the interior acts which my humanity did in the divine will, for love of all. So how can the creature unite with me and share in that good, if she knows neither the power of this will, nor how my soul operated in it, nor what I did? Knowledge brings with itself the value, the effects, the life of that good. An object provides as much utility for as much as it is known, and many times it happens with two objects having the same value, that someone who knows more about the value in selling it earns more, while someone else who does not have that knowledge gives it up for less. How much does knowledge accomplish? Many become rich because they take care of knowing things. Others find themselves in the same circumstances, but are poor because they do not know things well. Now, since I want you together with me also in the interior acts which my humanity did in this supreme volition, it is right that I make you know the qualities, the value, the effects, the power, and the ways of this will of mine. And as I keep manifesting them to you, I open between us the participation in that which I make you know. Otherwise, why would I say it to you? Perhaps to give you simple news? No, No, when I make something known, it is because I want to give. Therefore, as many values and effects as you know, so many have I given to you. See, then, the great good I want to do, not only for you, but also for others. In fact, as the knowledge of living in the divine will makes its way, it will be loved more, and love will absorb into them all the good which the knowledge, as prolific mother, will have delivered for them. I am not the isolated God. No, I want the creature together with me. My echo must resound in hers, and hers in mine, so as to make them one. And if I have waited for so many centuries to make known my will operating in the creature, and hers operating in mine, almost raising it to my own level, it is because I had to prepare and dispose the creatures to move from minor to greater knowledges. I had to act like a teacher who must teach vowels, consonants, and then move to compositions. Until now, nothing but vowels and consonants was known about my will. It was necessary that I move to compositions, and this will carry out the life of my will. The first composition, I want it from you. If you are attentive, you will do it well, so as to give me the honor of an essay given to you by your Jesus, the most noble essay, the essay of the eternal will, which will bring me the greatest glory, and forming the connection with the creatures, will make known new horizons, new heavens, and new excesses of my love. See, in my supreme will are all my interior acts, which my humanity did, as though in waiting to come out as messengers, to put themselves on the way. These acts were done for the creatures, and want to give themselves, and make themselves known. And since they cannot give themselves, they feel as though imprisoned, and they pray. They implore my will to make them known, so as to be able to give the good which they contain. I find myself in the condition of a poor mother, who has held her birth inside her womb for a long time, and as the time comes to deliver, if she does not, she agonizes, she anguishes, and forgetful of her life, at any cost she wants to give birth. The hours, the days of delay seem like years and centuries to her. She has done and disposed everything. There is nothing left but to deliver it. So am I, more than a mother. For many centuries I have held within me, more than a birth, all my human acts done in the sanctity of the eternal volition, in order to give them to the creature. And when they give themselves, they will raise the human acts of the creature to divine acts, and will adorn her with the most beautiful beauties, making her live with the life of my will, giving her the value, the effects, and the goods which my will possesses. Therefore, more than mother, I agonize, I anguish, I burn with desire to deliver this birth from my will. The time has come. There is nothing left but to find one who would receive the first birth, so as to continue with other births in other creatures. This is why I tell you, be attentive. Enlarge your heart to be able to receive all the value, the effects, the knowledge which my will contains, so that I may place the first birth in you. How much joy will you give me? You will be the beginning of my happiness upon earth. I could say that the human will rendered me unhappy in the midst of creatures, and my will operating in the creature will restore my happiness. October 9th, 1926, Volume 20. The divine fiat possesses the source of novelty, and the soul who lets herself be dominated by it is under the influence of a new continuous act, never interrupted, and receives the effects and the life of everything that the divine will has done. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus made himself seen in my interior, with a sun that descended from heaven and was centered in his breast. And as I prayed, breathed, moved, and did my acts in his will, I acquired light. And Jesus expanded more within my soul, occupying more space. I remained surprised in seeing that everything I did acquired light from the breast of Jesus, and that Jesus became larger and extended more within me, and I was filled more with him. After this he said to me, "My daughter, my divinity is a new continuous act, and since my will is the regime of it, the carrying out of our works, the bearer of this new act, it possesses the fullness of this new act, and therefore it is ever new in its works, new in its happiness, in the joy, and ever new in the manifestation of its knowledges. This is why it tells you always new things about my fiat, because it possesses the source of novelty. And if it seems that many things look alike and hold hands, this is the effect of the endless light it contains, that is indivisible, and therefore they seem to be lights that are all linked together. And just as in the light there is the substance of colors that are like many new and distinct acts that the light possesses, one cannot say that there is only one color, but all colors, with the variety of all shades, pale, strong and dark. However, what embellishes these colors and renders them more brilliant is the fact that they are invested by the power of light. Otherwise they would be like colors without attractiveness and without beauty. In the same way, the many knowledges given to you about my will, because they start from its endless light, are invested with light, and therefore it seems that they hold hands, that they look alike. However, in their substance, they are more than colors, ever new in the truths, new in the way, new in the good they bring, new in the sanctification they communicate, new in the similes, new in the beauties. And perhaps even just one new and additional word contained in the different manifestations about my will is always a divine color, and it is a new eternal act that brings to the creature an act that never ends, in the grace, in the goods, and in the glory. And do you know what it means to possess these knowledges on my will? It is as if one possessed a coin that has the virtue of making arise as many coins as one wants. And if one possesses a springing good, poverty is over. In the same way, these knowledges of mine possess light, sanctity, strength, beauty, and riches that arise continuously. So those who will possess them will have the source of light, of sanctity. Therefore darkness, weaknesses, the ugliness of sin, poverty and divine goods will end for them. All evils will end, and they will possess the source of sanctity. See, this light that you see as centered in my breast is my supreme will. As you emit your acts, light arises and communicates itself to you, bringing you new knowledges about my fiat that, emptying you, enlarge the place for me in which I can extend more within you. And as I keep extending myself, so do your natural life, your will, all of yourself, come to an end, because you give place to mine. And I occupy myself with forming and extending more and more the kingdom of the supreme fiat in you. And you will have a larger field in order to go around in it, and to help me in the work of the new formation of my kingdom in the midst of creatures. Then I continued my acts in the unending heaven of the divine volition, and I could touch with my own hand how in everything that came out of the eternal fiat, both in creation and in redemption and in sanctification, there are many beings and innumerable things, all new and distinct among themselves. At the most, they look alike, they hold hands, but not one being or thing can say, "I am the same as the other." Even the smallest insect, the littlest flower, carries the mark of novelty. So I thought to myself, it is really true that the fiat of the Divine Majesty contains the virtue, the source of a new continuous act. What happiness it is to let oneself be dominated by this omnipotent fiat, to be under the influence of a new act, never interrupted. Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus came back and, looking at me with unspeakable love, called everything around himself. At his wish, all creation and the goods of redemption found themselves around Jesus, and he bound my poor soul to all creation and redemption, to let me receive all the effects of everything that his adorable will has done. And he added, "My daughter, one who lets herself be dominated by my will is under the influence of all its acts, and receives the effects and the life of what I did in creation and redemption. Everything is in relationship with her and bound to her." October 19th, 1937, Volume 35. How the Divine Will Forms the Most Holy Trinity in the Creature Who Lives in It. The Wonders of its Acts. How true love begins from oneself. The divine will fecundates and sows divine life within souls. The divine volition keeps investing me. I feel its motion within me speaking as it moves, but with such an eloquence that, if it didn't perform a miracle to make itself understood, I would not be able to repeat what it says. Even more, it adapts itself to my capacity, because when it speaks, its word, being a creative word, it wants to create the good contained in its word. And if I were unable to understand, I couldn't make that good my own, or even less, give it to others, as property of the supreme fiat. So I felt concerned, thinking, how is it that its motion is word? And my sweet Jesus, visiting my poor soul, all love told me, "Blessed daughter of the divine volition, know that where my will reigns, with its creative power, its motion, and its word, it speaks in the works, in the steps, in the mind, in the breathing, wanting to establish its kingdom. My will speaks in order to create its divine life in each one of the acts of the creature. Therefore it takes the greatest attention to sense where it wants to begin its teachings. By the power of its word, its will invests the human act, the breathing, the heartbeat, the thinking, and the human word, and forms within it its divine work, the breathing, the heartbeat, the thinking, and the divine word. These acts rise up to heaven and present themselves before the most holy Trinity. Our divinity looks at them, and what do we find? We find ourselves, our life, and even the most holy Trinity reproduced in these acts. We look at the prodigy of our will that overwhelmed the creature with its power, making of her the repetition of our own life. Oh, how happy, how enraptured we remain, because we find in her the sanctity that resembles us, our love that loves us, the intelligence that understands us, our power and goodness that move us to love mankind through the bonds of our sweetness. We recognize ourselves in her, finding the work of creation as we want it to be. A single one of these acts contains such wonders that they just can't find enough room in which to place themselves, such is their greatness. Only in our immensity can they find the place in which to stay, remaining fused with our acts. What will our glory and the glory of the creature not be, since her acts, by virtue of our fiat, have their place within the acts of her Creator? Oh, if all knew what it means to live in the divine will, to let it reign, they would compete with each other to be invested by it and become repeaters of divine life. Beloved Jesus kept silent. I remained immersed in the sea of the divine volition, saying as if stupefied, "My God, what a great extent can be reached by one who lives in your will!" And a crowd of thoughts like many voices were saying and saying, but I am unable to repeat them. Maybe I will be able to repeat them when I will be in the heavenly fatherland and possess the same language as up there. So feeling concerned, my highest good Jesus continued, "My daughter, don't be surprised. Everything is possible to my will. True love, when it is perfect, begins from oneself. The true model is the most holy Trinity. My celestial Father loved himself, and in his love he generated his Son, so he loved himself in his Son. I, his Son, loved myself in the Father, and from this love the Holy Spirit proceeded. By this loving of himself, the Heavenly Father generated one single love, one single power, sanctity, and so forth. He tied the inseparable union of the three divine persons. When we created the creation, we loved ourselves. We loved ourselves in laying heaven and in creating the sun. It was the love for ourselves that moved us to create many beautiful things worthy of us and inseparable from us. When we created man, the love of ourselves became more intense, and as we loved ourselves in him, our love reproduced our life and image in the depth of his soul. One can give nothing other than what he possesses. So, since our love was perfect, as we loved ourselves, we could not separate ourselves from what was coming from within us. Now, our will, in wanting the creature to live in it, in order to form its kingdom, loves itself, and loving itself wants to give what it possesses. Our will is happy only when it forms the repetition of our life, and when it operates in the acts of the creature. Then, triumphant and victorious and with highest glory and honor for us, it brings them into our divine womb, so that we may recognize our own life in the acts of the creature who lives in our will. This is the meaning of loving itself in all that it wants to do and produce, giving itself in order to form another being similar to itself. Our will is the fecundator and the sower of our life. Where it finds souls disposed, it loves itself, fecundating them with its love, sowing in them its divine acts that, united together, form the great prodigy of the divine life in the creature. Therefore, abandon yourself completely in my will. Let it make of you whatever it wants, and we'll be happy, you and us. October 19th, 1938, Volume 36. One who lives abandoned in God finds in him her paternity, refuge, and hiding place. The Fiat as support and life of the whole creation. How God winds up one who lives in it. I am in the arms of the divine volition, although under the nightmare of my hardest sufferings, so as to move to pity the whole heaven, and make it run to my rescue, to give me strength in such a painful state. My Jesus, help me, do not abandon me. I feel like succumbing. How hard my state is. As I was saying this, my sweet Jesus, more tenderly than the most tender mother, stretched his arms out to me and squeezed me, and uniting his tears to mine, all goodness told me, "Poor daughter of mine, Your pains are mine, and I suffer together with you. Therefore, courage. Abandon yourself in me, and you will find the strength for your sufferings. The soul who abandons herself in me grows like a baby who is kept under the care of his mommy, who swaddles him to let his members be strengthened, feeds him with her milk, holds him in her arms, kisses him, caresses him, and if he cries, she mixes her tears with those of her baby. So the mother is the life of her baby. Oh, if the little one didn't have his mother, how badly he would grow without the one who feeds him with her milk, without clothing, without her warmth. He would grow sickly, weak, and lonely. Only a miracle can make him survive. Such is the soul who lives abandoned in my arms. She has her Jesus, who is more than a mother for her. I feed her with the milk of my graces. I swaddle her with the light of my will, so that she may be strengthened and confirmed in good. I keep her cuddled to my chest, so that she may feel only my love and the ardent beats of my heart. I rock her in my arms. If she cries, I cry with her, so that I feel my life as being more hers, while she grows together with me. And I do with her what I want. On the other hand, one who doesn't live abandoned in me lives as though isolated, without milk, without anybody to take care of her existence. The soul who lives abandoned in me finds the refuge from her sufferings, the hiding place in which to hide so that nobody can touch her. If anybody wants to touch her, I will know how to defend her, because touching the one who loves me is even more than touching myself. I hide her in me, and I confound those who want to strike the one who loves me. I love the one who lives abandoned in me so much that I make of her the greatest portent, so as to astonish the whole of heaven, and to leave all confused those who believed they could strike her and leave her covered by shame and humiliation. Let's not add this to the many pains we already suffer, since it would be the most painful one, you not living all abandoned in me and I in you. My daughter, let them say and do, as long as they don't touch our union. Nobody can enter into our secrets, in the abysses of my love, nor can they stop me from doing what I want with my creatures. Let us live one will, and all things will be fine between you and me. And then he added, with even more tender love, My blessed daughter, my Fiat is the support of the whole creation. Everything is placed upon it. There is nothing that is not animated by its power. If it weren't for my Fiat, all things, even the creatures, would be nothing other than many painted pictures or inanimate statues, incapable of generating, vegetating, or reproducing any good. Poor creation, if it wasn't for my will, and still they don't want to recognize it. What great pain, being the life of all and feeling suffocated in things created by us because they do not know us. What bitterness! If it weren't for our love, and if we were able to change, we would withdraw our will from everyone and everything, and all would be reduced to nothing. But since we are immutable, and we know with certainty that our will be known, wanted, loved, and that everyone will possess it more than their own life, we wait for it to be recognized, with invincible patience, a patience that only our divinity can possess. All this we do with judgment and our highest wisdom, since we do not do useless things. If we do, it is because we want our reward, which is receiving glory and honor from all our works, even from the most tiny little flower in the field. If this was not the case, we would be like a God who didn't know how to appreciate or to give the right value to our works. Therefore it is our justice that our will be known as life of all, so that we fulfill the scope for which we made the whole creation. Now, you must know that as the creature wants to do our will and enters it, she remains rehabilitated in it. She is rehabilitated in sanctity, in purity, in love. She rises again in the beauty and in the scope with which we created her, dissolving all the evils of the human will. She starts the life of good. As soon as my will sees that the soul wants to live in it, it does like one does with the clock that is not working. By winding it, it starts ticking, showing the hours and the minutes, becoming the guide of man's days. In the same way, my will, as she enters it, seeing her stopped in the good of the human will, gives her a divine winding, so that the whole being, human and spiritual, feels the new life and the virtue of this winding by which she feels invested. This divine winding runs in the mind, in the heartbeat, in everything, so that with irresistible strength she runs in all that is holy and good. This winding ticks the minutes and the eternal hours of the divine life in the soul. Oh, how she runs in all that is divine! We rehabilitate her in everything. We let her run everywhere in the immensity of our sea, to do and to take the things she wants. And although she cannot embrace all our immensity, she still lives in our sea, feeding herself on it, acquiring more of our beauty, wearing the clothes of our will. In our sea she finds rest, the chaste embraces of her Jesus, his reciprocal love, sharing with him joys and pains, and growing always in the good. My will becomes her life for her, her predominant passion. Our winding makes her run so much that she even forms her own little divine royal palace within our sea, which will be populated by the most holy Trinity, who delights in this fortunate creature, filling her always with new graces and gifts. Therefore, cherish in your heart to live in our Fiat, so that we may find in you the joys and the glory of the whole creation, the scope for which we created it. End of October 19th. Fiat.